The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
What time is it?
I started to question myself if I was watching Lucha Underground and I had accidentally flipped over to Cinemax.
Not a whole lot of faces shown as far when it comes to Brenda, so
yeah,
you're spot on there, buddy.
This is the house that AJ Styles built.
Like Nakamura, he's just such a great star. It doesn't matter what you do with him, people are going to cheer for him.
Did you feel the gloriousness? Did you feel it? Bobby Roode did his job.
This is insane how great they are.
Well, I think the authors of Pain are young prodigies.
That's how good we are, representing Bullet Club. This is what we do.
Super Kid Pate! Bam!
If there's an opportunity that presents itself, the iconic duo are definitely going to take full advantage of that.
Definitely. And Ruby, you're right. You said it. She's a freak. The woman is a freak. And the breakout stars of the year come into every situation with a plan. And tonight was no different. We came into the situation with a plan, and the iconic duo used our plan. You know?
Ladies and gentlemen, wrestling to the max.
And your hosts, Gary Vaughan, Sean Garmer, and Paul Leazar.
Welcome everyone to Wrestling to the Max, episode 262, part 2. And of course, we are brought to you by W2Mnet.com. Yeah, it's the place where you go find all your great wrestling content that you can find. Of course, make sure you go rate, subscribe, and review at Wrestling to the Max, wherever you get your podcast from. Maybe you get it from Apple Podcasts. Maybe you always go over there at YouTube or any other place you like to find them. Make sure you go do that for us. It just helps us know what you like. And also, those 5 stars get us out there to maybe, let's be honest, let other people see us. And so there you go. Also, hey, make sure we get a little love over there to 411mania.com, as well as Last Word on Wrestling, or Last Word on Pro Wrestling. I'm going to make sure I get that right for you guys. And if you listen to us through either of those sites, make sure you go ahead and send them a message. Say, we love Wrestling to the Max. We want to hear more. Send it to them. Make sure you also know a couple of other things. We have some other things going on great on W2Mnet.com, like the Mae Young Classic stuff. That's right. Wrestling Unwrapped to the Max is presenting it to you, and we are doing episodes 2 at a time. Paul, actually, with Harry Broadhurst, along with Patrick Ketza, have already done 3 episodes. 1 to introduce it to you, and then, of course, 2 with episodes 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4, all in a nice little package for you guys to go check out. Don't forget to go do that, because trust me, as you're watching it on the network, you want to get some of the behind the scenes, some of the feedback on some of the things going on. That's what you need to go do. Check out those shows after you watch them on the network. And, of course, go check out all the other great content we have to offer over there. Well, guys, I, of course, am your host, Gary Vaughan. Along with me is Mr. Paul Leazar.
Heyo.
And Mr. Sean Garmer.
What's up, everybody?
And guys, we've got a lot of great content to get into. I am super excited about this show because, yeah, sure, we've got some great stuff when it comes to Lucha Underground to get into, along with some Global Force Wrestling stuff that I think is going to, have some conversation pieces as well. But this week's news and quick hits is going to be really interesting because we're going to talk a little PWI 500. That's right. They had their big list coming out, but we're going to only talk about the top 10. And we're going to kind of break it down a little bit there and kind of tell you what our opinions are about the top 10, maybe some things we would change, things like that. And, of course, we're going to get into some of the injury news that you guys are waiting to find out about, like Xavier Woods. We're also getting some information about Dalton Castle if you're a Ring of Honor fan, along with Samoa Joe, who I know a lot of us were kind of disappointed when we heard that he had a knee injury. And trust me, guys, as soon as we ended the show on Monday night, which Tuesday morning for all you on the download, we found out about this, and we were like, oh, man, we just missed it. But we'll talk about it tonight, and a lot more interesting news that you do not want to miss on this show when it comes to quick hits. Guys, we spent a lot of time talking about Hurricane Harvey on the Tuesday show. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I still want to say this. Once again, this thing is continuing on and on. The flooding is becoming the biggest issue. I personally have hit this closer to home now because my grandmother's town, where she has her house, now she doesn't live there anymore, thank God, but her house is still there that she's been trying to sell, is getting flooded. A lot of my other relatives have actually had to evacuate out of Orange, Texas, is where exactly I'm talking about. And it's been really hitting them hard. And so as I watch my family evacuate, and as I kind of see all this damage, I still say to myself, man, this is becoming serious and more serious as time goes on. And then I get worse news, guys. Jamaica in the Caribbean, one of the stops that I'll be taking when I'm going on vacation in a month, it could possibly be getting damaged by the next hurricane. Mm-hmm. So, boy, I hope that goes out to the Atlantic and not the Caribbean. It could really ruin my vacation because I'm planning on going to a haunted house out there in Jamaica, and I'm going to be really pissed off if anything happens. But that's my end of the world, guys. I see how selfish I am, Sean. I'm sitting here complaining about this, and I'm just worried about my vacation, not all of the other stuff now.
Hey, you know what? We talked a lot about the other side of it, so hey, you can be a little bit selfish now. No. It's not like we didn't give the rest of it its due or whatever. We talked on the football show about all these people that are giving money. So, hey, let's hope that all that money that's being given goes to the correct places to help the people and start rebuilding these cities. That's not just Houston, because they just keep talking about Houston like there's no other city going on that also got affected.
Yeah.
But no, I get it. They focus on the major city. That's what happens in these things.
Houston's also the fourth most populated town in the United States, which is just crazy to think about. Yes. So many people got displaced.
And it's crazy that they have no way to empty the water out easier being that populated.
It's really interesting because news sources, at least around here, actually blame rapid development, which is the same thing that's happening here in Dallas, in that they're paving over so much grass that there's not enough dirt to soak up the water. It's just all pavement, and it's got nowhere to go except to run. It's insane, really. Really how much this area, just Texas in general, is blowing up. But Gary, I would think walking through a haunted house in knee-deep water would just only add to the effect.
Well, the effect of what diseases am I catching as I'm getting scared by the ghost?
See, it's a multi-front fear.
Yeah, you could be getting bit by who knows what in the water, and then, you get the crazy whatever.
Yeah.
Whoever it is scaring you.
Yeah, see, man, it's a good thing I'm married because, if I was going onto this cruise single, I'd be going out into the water, worried about getting bit by something, worried about diseases, where do I getting fearful, and then getting on a cruise ship worrying about venereal diseases. So, thank God, check mark off one of those lists, right? So, yeah.
And now you have to worry about two of you getting sick, and then she gets you sick, or you get her sick.
I know. Oh, God. Yeah, it's a mess. I hope it works out. I just don't want to deal with it. I'm already going to have to drive down through all this hurricane damage and the flooding damage just to get to my destination on the Gulf Coast to get on the boat. So, yeah, I'm just hoping it's, working its way to being better. And we were joking around here, and we're having a good time, and it's not inexpensive to anybody because, trust me, I could have a podcast alone talking about some of the depressing things that are going on with my family right now and some of my close friends. That, the damage that's taken place and the fact that they lost everything. I could sit here and talk about that tonight. I'm not going to. But anyway, my point being is, we're having fun because we have to. Just like I was telling a friend of mine, I have to make jokes about some of the things going on in our society right now, because if I don't, I think I'd put a gun in my mouth. So it's just a lot of sad stuff. And I want to say this also, so happy to see still, even though it's, been a week about, people are still helping each other and all this other stuff we've had to worry about beforehand. No one remembers that. We're caring about keeping they're safe, and that's what. Oh, I'm so happy about that. Oh God, I can't tell you how happy I am. So, but anyway, guys, I know we're talking about all this stuff.
We don't have to hear about that orange guy.
Yeah, well, it's the orange guy and everybody else that's involved, right?
Speak for yourself.
Yeah.
You like hearing about him? That's good.
He donates $1 million, and then there's all these people complaining that he's using the hurricane to cover up all the terrible things he's been doing recently, like pardoning that one guy, or Lord knows whatever else that guy's doing. So
yeah, it doesn't matter who. This is what I tell people all the time. It doesn't matter who the president is. Everyone's going to have something bad to say about him. Mm-hmm. It's just the way it works.
But it seems like this one's just extra.
Well, yeah, but you have to look at. We can get to political show. That party always gets crapped on because they're not on the side of the media, which I'm not really a part of any of that. I don't really care about party systems, but I'm just being honest. If you're listening from the UK or anywhere else, the US has a big problem. One of our sides of the party gets hated on by the media.
I'm pretty sure that all those people get enough of that crap over there too.
Oh yeah,
that they don't want to hear about anymore either.
So let's not even talk about that. We got so much more better stuff to talk about on this show, and that of course involves wrestling. What we're here to listen and talk about. So let's go ahead and get into what we need to talk about. Let's jump into some quick hits. We got a lot of them tonight.
Let's do it.
It's time for wrestling news. Quick hits.
Take it away, Gary.
All right, guys. Well, let's start out by talking about the PWI. That's right. This is a list, and this is a top 10 list we're going to go down. Now, they, of course, have 500 wrestlers that they break down, talk about all of them, but we're not doing that. I think a lot of you would be bored after number 36. Yeah. I think everybody would be tuned out, and I would be tuned out as well. I just let you guys go.
We would all just fall asleep right here on the podcast.
Hey, you're right about that, man. But yeah, this is a really cool list, and we'll just start out by going top to bottom, 1 to 10, because I think this is kind of more interesting, top heavy anyway. Kazuchika, I can't even say his. I'll say Okada. I'll let you guys say his first name.
Kazuchika.
Kazuchika. Thank you, Sean. See, I need phonetics. Next time I'll have to make sure I phonetically write this out. Kazuchika Okada, of course. I still can't say it. He won the top 500. That's right. He is the number 1 on the list. And guess what, guys? He is the first Japanese pro wrestler to ever be ranked on the number 1 in this PW 500. And I think that's really, really cool. I love the cover that they have here for him too. I think that's super awesome. But yeah, I mean, this is a big deal, but it also shows the influence that New Japan has had on wrestling. And this is super, super amazing to me. But not only that, I don't really, there's a couple of guys on the list that you could argue that take, maybe switch with Okada. But really, I don't think you got any better and maybe a better choice than Okada right now. I mean, Paul, we've been talking pro wrestling a lot, and of course how New Japan has grown and how big of a part they've become on this show alone. This is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, we know PWI usually sticks to a sort of kayfabe idea, and them starting to put New Japan guys on here, I think just shows you the reach that New Japan is sort of starting to get over here in the States. And legitimately, if you just look from the last time the PWI 500 came out from last year to now, there hasn't been a better wrestler in the world than Okada. It's just unbelievable what this guy's been able to pull off. So, absolutely deserves every single heap of praise this guy can get, because he's absolutely earned it.
Yeah, I mean, Paul just said it. There is no this man is leading everything as far as running away with how great he's been, not only in this calendar year, but in the, I think it's like halfway through the year. It's June to July to June, or June to July, which is, it's staggering, the amount of great matches, the amount of just impactful things that Okada has done for New Japan. And, I mean, if you were going to you could argue that you could put other New Japan guys in that spot as well. Not just, from another promotion or whatever, if you wanted to change that out. That's how great the company has been as a whole.
Yeah, and I definitely want to get into that for sure. And I'm sure we can kind of break that down. Before we do that, though, I want to throw out the 2 through 5. That way we can have 1 through 5 kind of we can debate about. AJ Styles got number 2. Number 3 is Kevin Owens. Roman Reigns captures number 4 on this list. And number 5, Kenny Omega. One of those guys that I think, Sean, you're kind of alluding to that really could have been number 1 on this list, amongst other guys, in my personal opinion, from New Japan.
Well, yeah, I think you got to remember that, again, PWI does do kayfabe here, so winning championships and drawing money, that kind of thing, also is important in this. And so while you can say that there are times where Omega has proven he can draw money, the whole winning championships thing has not always been, he did win the U.S. title recently, but I think that would still count in that time frame. He won the IC title and everything, but you're looking at, how many times have you won the major championship in your promotion and all that, and then you combine that all together. So that probably might be why he's 5, compared to some of these other guys. Not to mention, we still got to think about WWE is still the biggest company in the world from that level. So that's another reason why Okada's being number 1 is huge, because when you look at the two things, New Japan and WWE side by side, they don't really compare if you're trying to compare them together like that from a money standpoint. But if you're looking from, wrestling standpoint, you can say, oh, well, New Japan has trumped them. But, I think the other guys, it's hard to argue that they shouldn't be there. I mean, AJ he has been the best guy in WWE since he's been there. It's hard to argue that point as well, as far as not just from a wrestling standpoint, from being a guy that nobody, when he comes in, oh, here he goes, he's just going to be this mid-card dude. He's not going to reach the heights that he had, and he proves everybody wrong. And then, now I forgot who number 3 was, and
Kevin Owens is number 3.
Kevin Owens wins stuff all the time, and he's great, and it's nobody can touch him on the microphone. He's very few guys can touch him on the microphone. He deserves his spot. I'm surprised that Roman's not above him, just because of the stature that Roman has. He has been losing a lot more recently, so that might be part of it. And he's had a longer time without having the championship, which that also probably plays into it as well. But he's still a huge player for WWE, whether you like him or not. And yeah, it's hard to argue with that 1 through 5.
Yeah, for sure. And just to round this out, we got number 6 being Shinsuke Nakamura. We got 7 is Dean Ambrose. 8 is Samoa Joe. 9, Bobby Roode. And 10, The Miz. And Paul, once again, Sean said it is all, really related to kayfabe and all this. But, after you hear those names falling in that top 5, how are you feeling about it?
This one is a little tough to argue. The Miz and maybe Roman might be the only ones you could argue for. I think Bobby, since he came into NXT, has basically been their top draw since everybody got called up. So, I mean, that I don't have a problem with him being here. Dean and Joe basically doing big things over on Raw, and Dean, of course, traded the Intercontinental Championship a lot the past year. So, there's all that reasoning there. And Shin is just, Shin, right? Carried NXT for a while, got to SmackDown, made an immediate impact, and very almost following the same steps that AJ did, right? They start him out kind of in the middle, and you can already tell they have aspirations for him to be in the main event like they did with AJ, and they just kept pushing and pushing until they got there. And I think that's where they're going with Shin.
I would argue that you could put someone there besides Dean, but, they don't, because you're using the kayfabe portion and not so much, match quality or anything. I don't know. I just feel like Naito's done enough to deserve to be in that top 10-ish area.
And Naito is 12. And surprisingly, 11 is Neville, who jumped all the way up from 66 last year.
Wow.
Yeah, see, like Neville, he carried the Cruiserweight title for like ever, so,
Another one I wanted to mention too, Gary, is that even PWI 500 thinks that Ciampa is better than their Gargano. Ciampa is higher.
What number is he? What got to give me the number?
I think Ciampa is in the 60s and Gargano is 80.
Okay. See, hey, PWI, smart people over there. Say, no, I mean,
Ciampa is 67.
Okay, 67. Fair enough. And hey, not a bad place, especially since he's got injured, so he hasn't had the opportunity to be on more shows. If he was, like, maybe hop up to number 30 or something. Maybe. That's just me, though. I'm really kind of curious. I mean, we have some of these other New Japan guys. Where's Juice and Robinson on there? Is Juice Robinson anywhere? In a good number? Do we know? And I look at other guys. I mean, Ishii and of course Bushi. A few guys,
So I don't think Juice is on the list. He might be in my search function, just might not be working. Ishii is 74, and he dropped last year from his position at 37. And then you have Michael Elgin sort of behind him at 76.
Okay. So
Ishii should always be
number one. I agree.
Yes.
Well, yeah. See,
Kushida's
there you go.
20.
My favorite quote about all this is Samoa Joe yesterday. If in the biz and upset about your PWI ranking, schedule permitting, I'll stop by and toss a brick at your head to justify your boo-boo face.
That is awesome. Oh my god, yeah. Kushida at 20. I was really curious about Kushida too. I mean, that's a little surprising too for me. I thought
he held the junior heavyweight title for a long time, so that probably puts you up there. I mean, if the cruiserweight title, WWE's cruiserweight title, which is way less prestigious than the New Japan junior heavyweight title, can get you from 66 to 11. Then, should count for something.
Yeah, it really should, and, once again, I mean, I think if we were actually talking about some other qualities besides keeping this kayfabe, I think this list is a lot different. But I understand they've got that set of rules. They've had that set of rules for a long time, so we're going by that. But, man, there's a lot of names on here that I'm like, man, I don't know how they get ranked there or here, so. But yeah, I mean, that pretty much is the top 10 for you guys, and we gave you a few other names out there that from other positions. But yeah, definitely go check it out, see what you think. Let us know what you think about the top 10. I'm really curious what you guys have to say about it. Make sure you hit us up. Also hit us up on the Facebook group. We love everybody that does that, and of course, you can also email us, all that great stuff. Just let us know what you think about this top 10. Let's talk about some injuries that we've been kind of concerned about. One of those is Xavier Woods. You kind of heard me go on and on about, the New Day. And, of course, I kept them as champions, even though they're not champions. Xavier Woods apparently is injured, but thankfully he can still be a part of SmackDown. He just can't get in the ring and actually do anything. But they do say that his knee injury is not as bad as once thought. It is just a sprain, which could keep him out a week or up to maybe 4 weeks. So not a clear timetable, but at least it is a shorter timetable than we previously expected. I think all of us here on the show were knee-jerk reactionary about it and kind of really thought, oh, God, ACL or some other terrible problem. This is an MCL injury that really is a lot shorter time span of getting healthy. So that's, a lot better news. And something else we were really concerned about was that Samoa Joe knee injury that he has. Now, he's supposed to be gone for up to 4 weeks himself, and they're not really being, forefront on what's going on with that. No details really on what he has with his knee. But these are a couple of guys that I think we like watching. We like to see on our TV screen, Paul. I'm just happy this is better news than a longer timetable.
Yeah, Joe was a little bit more worrying because it was revealed last minute. I think it hit the news sites like 20 minutes after we finished our show Monday night, Tuesday morning, and they had to shuffle Raw around because of the injury, because apparently Joe was going to face Cena that night. That didn't happen. So at least it's only short. 4 weeks isn't too long, and obviously the stuff that you do normally worrying about being out long term, you don't necessarily have to worry about as much. And it's great news about Xavier too. Sprained MCL, maybe he can just dance around on crutches till he's ready to wrestle again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were worried that he was going to be out for a while, so being, they apparently, Zeke has officially filed a lawsuit to vacate his suspension.
I knew something was distracting you.
Yeah, so...
You got that on your phone, you're like, what the crap?
Yeah, so, look, the great news for Xavier, because I would have hated to see him have to not be out there with them, and if it was going to be a long-term thing, just because I can't imagine that's great for his sprain if he's constantly just walking on it for 20 minutes, shouting and screaming and whatever. So, hey, anytime that these guys can stay healthy and stay what they're doing, it's always good. I hate hearing with so many dang injuries we hear about in other forms of sport. It's nice to hear about good things sometimes.
Yeah, you're not lying. And the one good thing is, hey, Xavier, you can sit on the ramp and play your trumpet. Or your trombone. Trumpet. I think, you could do that. You don't have to walk around everywhere. Just stay healthy, man. Get a wheelchair. You're okay. So... as long as, these guys are getting back sooner than later, I'm happy because I want Samoa Joe back on Raw and doing big things because this guy's awesome. Let's talk about something, Sean, that I think is kind of an interesting piece of news that came out. And Kurt Angle kind of talked about this in an interview, saying that he was not supposed to be the Raw general manager. Yeah, this was not a previously thought-out plan for him to be in that position. Apparently, this is something they kind of asked him because of another situation, and that was Mick Foley had to have hip surgery, and so he was going to have to be gone. They needed a GM for Raw. Well, there you go. Kurt Angle's, going to be in the Hall of Fame. Why not put him as the Raw general manager, keep him around? I think that's kind of interesting. I thought maybe that was a whole planned out thing, Sean, but apparently not. I mean, I wonder what he'd be doing if he wasn't, asked to do that, if Mick Foley was still the GM.
I don't know. Maybe he would have started to maybe he would have just been a trainer in NXT for a while until they found something for him to do on the main roster. I still cannot imagine that he would have walked in the door and been wrestling from day one. I still feel like there's a plan for him, and it's probably involves WrestleMania for him to either have one last match or he starts being able to wrestle there. Or maybe, and who knows, maybe they start this at, let him have a Survivor Series tag match and see how it goes or whatever. But I feel like it wouldn't have been wrestling. It'd be something, but I don't know that it would have been on air because that's the only thing you have for him, right? I mean, he already doesn't do the GM role the greatest. So unless he was given some kind of weird on-air role on NXT, I feel like a trainer would be like the only thing really for him.
I think maybe they would have had him on screen, they would have had him sign with Raw, and you either maybe have him disappear for a while, or you keep having him show up in these vignettes or segments, hyping up something, and maybe I would even go so far as to say it might have been a program with Brock at SummerSlam. Maybe. Obviously, we'll never know now, and maybe it worked out for the best, too, because you have so much great talent now on Raw and the main event scene who have gotten a chance to shine, but I don't know, like, thinking back and what could have been like maybe we wouldn't have had Braun Strowman and Samoa Joe in the positions they are now because of, Kurt being involved in a bigger story or something like that. It's really interesting, but he also thinks he'll be wrestling before the end of the year, too, so I wouldn't be shocked if maybe he gets put on a team with Jason Jordan at Survivor Series or something like that.
Yeah, to me, especially with the way they've got things going with Jason Jordan, if he wasn't in the role that he is now, I thought maybe that they would have him do something like we'd all talked about, with him being with Jason Jordan and Chad Gable. And since they didn't do that, now he's got the connection with Jason Jordan alone. Mm-hmm. I could see where, he gets fired from being the GM because he's being too partial to Jason Jordan, and I could see that leading to other things, which could be a lot of fun. So if that happens, I'm completely happy with it. But there's a few other things that can go. But other than that, I think that having him as GM isn't the worst thing, but it's not also the best thing because I think you at times kind of feel it's forced. I think you just feel that way. But I'm at least happy Kurt Angle's with WB. That's the one thing I'm positive about. There's a lot of times before this that we really never thought that would ever take place. So, Kurt Angle got into the Hall of Fame. He was one of the bigger Hall of Fame guys this last year. But there's another name that actually has been, rumored to be one of the head guys heading up and headlining next year's Hall of Fame. Dave Bautista, Paul. Mm-hmm. Wow. That's kind of interesting to me. He's a big movie star. He's making tons of money out there in Hollywood. It's not a bad idea for WWE to do this now and cash in on his fame.
I think that is exactly why they would want to do this, is because Marvel is still going hot and heavy. He's going to be in the Avengers stuff next year. Like, why not? But do you think his wrestling career really warrants it?
That's the next question. I don't know. It's hard for me. I kind of think that he has been a draw of some sort. He's had some big matches, but it's also not been a lengthy one. Sean, I don't know if you agree or disagree with that, but it's hard.
I feel like with WWE, does somebody deserve it? Doesn't matter when you have guys that are in there that don't have these illustrious careers. I think Batista was on top for a while. You were a champion for a while. Wasn't it you that said that almost anybody that has been a world champion pretty much should probably be in? Mm-hmm. So if we're going to go by that route, then Batista should be in, right? He didn't, for the matches he got to have, he did have some pretty damn good ones. But again, we're in a different era now than we were in 2002 to whatever. Batista wasn't graced with the SmackDown 6 or whatever. He's a power guy that came on at an older age. For the time that he got to be there, I feel like he did enough. Yes, he's not going to go down, I think, as one of the best ever or whatever, but he deserves that.
And going by what I said, I would have agreed with you entirely just simply on the merit that he was a world champion for the WWE. I also think he deserves it too from the draw standpoint, right? He got SmackDown through a relatively tough time when not a lot of people were watching during the middle 2000s, and people just kind of drew to him, and it really worked out for him. And WWE obviously got behind him pretty good too with Evolution and beating Triple H at Mania and all these other storylines that they did with him. And heel Tista will be something I'll take with me to the grave just because that was wonderful. But I do think he deserves it. Maybe I don't know who else you put in this class with him, but if you need a headliner, it's the right time and it's the right place to do it next year.
Yeah, I think, it's something that honestly could be debated. And I agree with you guys. I think he definitely has a spot, and I think there's a lot of people who would say, well, why is he headlining? He's not exactly the guy that has had the years that some of these other guys have had that are not in the Hall of Fame. But on the same point, this guy has done a lot. As part of the WWE universe, and of course, the reason why they pick some of their Hall of Famers now is because of outside exposure. It's not just about what they do in the ring a lot of times. A lot of times it does honestly have to do with their popularity, if they do great works outside of wrestling, for charity work, things like that. And I think means a lot.
Right now, Batista could be in the celebrity wing of the Hall of Fame by himself, just from the movie stuff.
Yeah.
So that doesn't even count the wrestling stuff, so...
Mm-hmm.
Remember, WWE cares about that stuff too.
Yeah.
They really, are wanting to find a way to get their, family-friendly image out there for a reason. There's a reason why they're trying to get more of their superstars into Hollywood. It's because they want that exposure. They want people to be mentioning their name on a regular basis, whether it be in sports or it's entertainment. Heck, wherever they can get their name, they're going to want it, continually promote their product, and they're doing a good job of it. And, Dave Bautista is definitely one of those guys that right now they can look at and smile because, he's doing it up in Hollywood right now and making a lot of money, and also giving the WWE universe and, of course, the company a lot of feedback and love because of that. So,
Let's not forget his biggest accomplishment. He walked alone through pits of danger, guys. Come on. That's yes. Hall of Fame worthy alone.
And had some crazy fireworks.
Yes.
Oh, man. And, of course, has one of the best nicknames in wrestling history, Blue Tista.
That's true.
So, but yeah, I really do hope, positive things for Batista. He's a cool guy, From what I've seen in interviews and different things, he seems like a better guy than I thought he was when he was just wrestling. So, but yeah, this is really cool, and really happy to see what he's going to do from here. That could be a controversy with some people because some people may not believe that Dave Bautista deserves to be there. But let's talk about something else that's controversial. Let's talk about this Mae Young Classic and the fact that this tournament is going to have an end. And there are rumors about that end. And the rumors aren't about who's going to win, but it's the fact that now that Asuka has vacated the NXT Women's Championship, that the winner of this tournament could become the next NXT Women's Champion. I have my personal opinion about it. I may hold it. I'll let you guys kind of talk about it, but I think this is controversial for me. I will just say this. I'm not a big fan of this, Sean.
Sorry, which one are we talking about here?
This is so basically they're rumoring that, the NXT Women's Champion could come out of the Mae Young Classic. Basically, if you win the Mae Young Classic... I don't have
a problem with this.
Okay, explain yourself.
They did that to crown the Cruiserweight Champion. So it doesn't bother me. And I don't think it's gonna. I don't think it's gonna crown. I don't think it's gonna wind up crowning the Mae Young. I don't think it's gonna wind up being that way. This is just some preliminary report or whatever. I think it winds up being that you become the number one contender, and then they will, if they're smart, they do something with the NXT women that are already there to crown a number one contender on that end, and you have both of them battle for the vacant championship at the next TakeOver, the one for Survivor Series or whatever.
Yeah, it's got to happen that way for me. They cannot give the NXT Women's Champion to the winner of the Mae Young Classic. They got to make
now,
it the number one
if
contender.
they want to do it to create a storyline where it's, not only her, but perhaps, they reveal many of the ones that have signed for the Mae Young Classic, and you have some kind of a Mae Young Classic invasion or something to go against the women that are already there in NXT, then I don't really mind if you're setting up a big story that's going to carry you for a while. I don't know. I think that would be kind of cool to have some kind of big women's storyline going on to carry NXT.
I don't know. There's so much steam behind the Mae Young Classic right now, I guess, as far as trying to publicize it on the network, that I think it would be almost a wasted opportunity if you don't have a single elimination women's tournament going on the NXT side to determine a number one contender from their side, and using the Mae Young Classic to fill out the other side, as you said, Sean, to have a match at a TakeOver and just build it up as this really big deal. Because, let's face it just makes the most sense. If you've read spoilers, you already know who's going to be in the Mae Young Classic finale like I do, and that if you put it for the NXT Women's title, I think it just gives it away. So, I don't know. I'm more leaning to you do a tournament on both, on the NXT side, you let the Mae Young Classic winner challenge at TakeOver, and you go from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we talked about this on the NXT review a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Or last week, I think, actually, technically. And I think we both kind of mentioned this, Paul, about the fact that it needed to be a bracket on both sides, have the tournaments, and then, those number one contenders face off for that big NXT Women's Championship match. And I think that that's the best way. I have a feeling they'll probably go that way if they're smart. But I just don't like the idea of handing the winner of the Mae Young Classic the title just to face off against the number one contender or whoever they want to make the number one contender on NXT. So that's just a rumor. Who knows if it's actually true. I didn't like it when I initially heard it. It really kind of ruffled my feathers because I think that doesn't make a lot of sense. It has a lineage. It's not like the Cruiserweight title where it just kind of, all right, we're opening something new. Here's something that's not as special as having a lineage or anything. So, but there you go. Of course, now we'll have to wait and see what they're actually going to do. Okay, so let's also talk about something that's been also kind of close to us and something we've been curious about. Let's talk about the UK guys. There's a lot of them that WB's been kind of playing around with. Let's be honest. They signed these guys. Guys like Pete Dunne, Tyler Bates, they all just kind of go around different shows. They wrestle on some of the, ICW shows, I believe, and of course they wrestle on NXT here and again, but really they don't have their own show. Well, apparently WWE is closer to having their own show. Apparently they're supposed to have a show within the year. And there's been a lot of thoughts that the reason they haven't actually had their show has been because they lost money when they did the UK tournament. And that had possibly affected them from pushing it further and making this happen and maybe kind of holding off on doing it. But apparently the word is that we are going to get a UK show. I mean, Paul, I'm kind of thrilled about that because I've been waiting and waiting to see this happen.
I think a lot of people have, and I also forgot to write down that the logistical problem continues to plague WWE too, about where to do it and how they're going to do it and how often and all this other stuff. So that's there too. I think the money idea, though, is the biggest one here, right? Because we've seen them already cut some costs here to try to save money, such as the pyro and other stuff like that. So maybe not going full bore in on the UK show like they had planned to after the last special. Back before NXT TakeOver Chicago, all that might still be playing into this too. But I really do hope they start before the end of the year. There's a lot of guys there that I think people want to see. And if the reactions at Brooklyn for Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate at the very least didn't keep people interested, people in the back to sit up and take notice that they do have something here that people at least in that crowd and the sort of crowd that we are, who watch a lot of the stuff on the network, want to see sooner rather than later makes more sense.
Yeah, I want to see them have this show. I think it's good for them. I think it's good for, again, allowing some of these talents that that are just sitting around at the Performance Center or maybe only show up on an NXT here and there. You can put them on this UK show like an Oni Lorcan or, some of these other guys. Hell, you could have Adam Cole and O'Reilly and Fish show up on them here and there or whatever. I mean, you could start building a whole UK side of NXT and start sending them over there. And even then, even if you don't do that, you can have guys that are still sort of, you feel like they're not ready for NXT, but you could have them be over there to kind of fill out that roster. And maybe they don't show up on TV, but they have matches to learn and get better or whatever, because I'm assuming that it's not just going to be a show. There's eventually going to be house shows and stuff like that for that too. But I get it. WWE doesn't want to keep losing money. They already lose money in the Performance Center itself, right? They already lose money on NXT. Now you're putting another show. I don't know how much money they're really gaining out of having 205 Live either. So you're going to put another show out there in a different part of the world. That's a lot of money. Even if you're doing it once every 2 months or something like that, it's still a lot of money that you're spending. And not to mention paying these guys salaries. If you eventually have, women involved in that, women's salaries as well, just that's a lot that you're putting all together there. And WWE really has to think about that from all angles about, is this going to be worth it for us to put on? And once you start it, you can't just all of a sudden stop it 2 months later, because then what do you do with those guys? NXT is already overcrowded. So, again, unless you're going to do a 2-hour NXT every week, you got to do something. And so they have to have all their ducks in a row before they finally pull the trigger and go, okay, we're doing this.
Yeah, you're not wrong on that. They've got to figure this out and make the right decisions, because there is no going back. And if they do, it's going to cause a lot more problems for them. They're going to lose a lot more money. And so they've got to put the right ducks in the right row. And let's see if they can do it. And I hope they can, because these UK guys are too talented for us not to see on a regular basis. And I think there's a lot of great storylines with those guys. It's really to be just kind of held hostage and just never be seen. So I'm really looking forward to it. I hope it happens sooner than later. We shall see that when it does happen. Let's jump into some rapid hits here, guys. We've got quite a few of them here, so let's go ahead and start with Alberto El Patron. That's right. He is supposed to be back in GFW by November.
Woo.
Oh, boy. Let me tell you how excited I am to see Alberto. Can they just say he's not coming back at all? That'd be awesome if he wasn't. But we know he's going to, and that's fine. I mean, he didn't do anything wrong technically, so you shouldn't be taking the man's right to work away and all that stuff. But I still just don't want to see him.
Well,
I don't care.
Maybe they hope that if they hold on to him, they'll eventually get Paige. Maybe that's the end game. I don't know. So,
well, I mean, they're not gonna. They paid too much money to just all of a sudden get rid of him now. Like, he's still a valuable asset. Just now, you can't build a company around him, and I wonder if this maybe sours him on GFW eventually, because he knows that, well, this screwed me up. They may never give me the title again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's all those possibilities. Who knows? I just know I'm not excited for November. One thing that we got to find out if you guys are excited about, and that is that GFW re-signed with Pop TV.
It's kind of a rough deal for them because it's essentially the same deal they already had. So they're still splitting ad revenue. They're not making a lot of money. And it's not really a step forward or a step backwards for them. It's just staying in the same rut that you're in, and that's maybe a nice thing for some to hear and maybe disappointing for others.
I feel like they didn't have many options. I think they have to have at least a full year with Jarrett and Anthem involved before they can really have any kind of leverage to say, okay, look, our ratings are getting better. And that's the problem. They don't really get better, right? They fluctuate a lot. They'll have like a record number show, and then they'll have a show that goes all the way down, and then they'll have a one in the middle, and whatever. I know ratings fluctuate all the time. It happens for WWE, it happens for everything else. But, for Pop TV, I don't know what metric they're really using, but things aren't that great, and you go and try to sell this to another company that's not Pop TV, and they go, do we want to really have wrestling, and do we want to really have wrestling with a company that doesn't have the greatest reputation? It's, I don't know. It's just, I hate that for them. Like, I want them to have a TV deal that makes the company money, but at least they're on TV, which is better than not being on TV.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that, this is something they're dealing with as they try to grow, and let's see if they can grow. It's going to be a process, and like you said, Sean, at least they're on TV. That's the biggest deal right now. Well, another situation going down that's not fun is the fact that Dalton Castle apparently has a back injury, and it's going to keep him off Ring of Honor television for a while.
This really sucks because they were setting him up for a feud with Cody, and they have quickly had to renege on that since the back injuries have sort of become a larger problem for Dalton since he had been working with them for a while. So, really sucks for Dalton. Really sucks for Ring of Honor because this is one of those guys I think they're sort of relying on to get him through for a while.
Yeah, Dalton Castle's awesome, and it sucks to hear him being injured. I mean, it sucks for anybody to be injured, but he was a guy that was on the rise, and he's always awesome, and it just, I hate this for him.
Santino Marella wrestled his last match against Chavo Guerrero Jr. in front of his hometown in a promotion called Destiny Wrestling. And this, of course, was in front of his daughter, most importantly.
So it's a pretty cool little story. Santino is always, I think, a favorite for some, and certainly he grew on me as time went on for sure. But it's kind of cool that he got to do this in his hometown in front of his daughter and everything. And he even said he's had a surgically repaired neck, and doing this sort of set his healing back there some, but he said it was sort of all worth it to do it this way. So very cool for him, and way to go out on your own terms.
Yeah, this is awesome. I mean, anything you can, for him to be able to go out and do something in front of his family, and I'll never forget that Elimination Chamber. Like, that was one of the most awesome times where I was really excited for him to be able to do something. Mm-hmm. And just, that's something that always sticks with me. That, and not to mention, some of the other fun comedy moments with Santino. Just, he was a wonderful character that we had.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad he got to have his last match in front of his daughter and do it in the way that he wanted to do it, right? And that's great. And I'm really happy for Santino Marella, so there you go. Well, guys, that wraps up our quick hits for this week. Of course, we'll have some more great news topics to talk about next week, but now we are going to move on, and we are going to be talking some Lucha Underground. So we'll be right back with that right after this.
All right. Lucha Underground opens this week with Dario meeting with his brother Matanza, who's still locked up in a cage and everything. And he admits to him that he was wrong about Rey Mysterio, since he now knows that Matanza just wanted to protect him from Rey since he got attacked by him last week during that title match. And says that Matanza will finally have a chance to get his hands back on Rey Mysterio, who beat him, ended up pinning him during the last Aztec Warfare. So we're calling back on some old stuff now due to the time break in between this season. But it'll be the 100th episode of Lucha Underground, and Matanza's going to go one-on-one with Rey Mysterio. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I really do. And, I just, this opening segment here was just kind of fun, too, because you see Matanza, just that animal instinct and rage and all that. You kind of feel that tension. I thought it was good. And calling back on history, not a bad move.
Mm-hmm. We also then learned that Ultima Lucha this year will be 4 nights. And the main event on the last night will, of course, be Johnny Mundo taking on Prince Puma for the Lucha Underground title. So that's kind of cool there. And then we get this first match for the evening as Son of Madness takes on Mascarita Sagrada. Sagrada, of course, has been allowed into whatever biker club Son of Havoc is a member of now, because it's clearly not the same one that Madness is. And he comes out with his cut on. Son of Madness does not take kindly to this. Basically a 2-minute squash with Madness getting the win and taking Sagrada's cut away from him. This brings out Son of Havoc afterwards, which leads to a big brawl. Dario comes out to bring security to break it up because he wants them to have a fight later on. He'll even put one of the Aztec medallions on the line, except it's going to be in a big Boyle Heights, biker brawl. So, what'd you think about this opening?
Opening is pretty good. I mean, you get your little, squash in a way. But I like the intensity, and you still have that tension between Son of Madness, Son of Havoc. And I was a little, kind of curious to see how far they would take this feud, right? I mean, because we already kind of had a spot where we could have said, well, they could have ended here. But they didn't, and they're continuing it. And I think it's actually not a bad idea to continue it. I think it's still got some legs, and I'm enjoying it for the most part.
Yeah, I really enjoy it too. And we'll get to really talk about this later in the main event. But first thing I want to talk about is this segment here. Marty is in the ring for his ring introduction against Argenis. And this is essentially an extended squash. Argenis does get some neat stuff in, but Marty is tearing at the mask of Argenis throughout it. He nearly tears it in half on his face and ends up busting him open and creating this really cool picture with the mask all torn up and blood flowing everywhere on Argenis before he finally puts him away with a variation of the code breaker. And then afterwards, Marty wants to take Phoenix's mask to show Melissa that he isn't this guy that she thinks he is. And this brings Phoenix out. Phoenix instead says, okay, I will accept your challenge, but only if you put your hair on the line as well. So now we have a Lucha de Apuesta for Ultima Lucha where Phoenix will put his mask on the line against Marty's hair. I'm really excited for this. I love Marty the Moth. He's really grown on me and has quickly become one of my favorite acts. And Phoenix is, he is awesome. So this should prove to be a terrific match.
I'm super looking forward to this. I think it's going to be great. And, it's nothing better than a classic hair mask match, right? I think it's going to be positive. I really like this. I like you just said, the picture, right? The picture of the torture that Marty puts this guy through. I mean, ripping his mask up, bloodying him, all that entails. To me, it speaks volumes. You just see it, and you just think, man, Marty is just a freaking jerk. I mean, he's violent. He doesn't care about anyone but himself, that kind of thing. So I like it. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I was pretty happy with this.
Mm-hmm. I was super thrilled with all this, so I cannot wait till we get to that match on Ultima Lucha, whichever night that's going to be on. And then we come to really the only negative I have about this show. Sexy Star takes on Joey Ryan. And the match isn't very good at all, unfortunately. And it's basically here to set up a future match because Taya comes down to the ring and has a sign with her that says "Go Sexy Star Go," and is sort of mocking her throughout the match because she's still feuding with her since Sexy won the title and has been involved in that whole Worldwide Underground fiasco with them. But recent happenings with Sexy just I don't care to watch her anymore. I don't hate her. I don't like her. I don't want to see her on my TV anymore, and that really makes it hard to try to watch a match that she's in.
You're being a little nicer than I am. I just I don't like her, and I don't. Maybe I don't know her personally, but that doesn't mean I don't like the character because of what she does personally. So sorry, rooting for her's out the door. It's gone. Bye bye. But what I do know is, they're trying to tell a story here, and Taya being involved and all of that. It's interesting, but with this stuff going on, it's really hard to really care about the situation. Joey Ryan and all that. That he's kind of funny and does a thing, but it is what it is. I should care more, I know. But it's hard when they taped this thing so long ago, and I think all this stuff actually was taped like 14 months ago or something.
I don't think it was that long ago. I think this stuff might have been earlier this year, late last year, so not 14 months, but it's definitely been a while.
Yeah.
So I should admit, Joey Ryan does win after a distraction there. Sexy Star went outside to attack Taya and all that good stuff, which led to Ryan getting a big super kick and the pinfall. Afterwards, Cortez Castro comes out with a kendo stick and attacks Joey Ryan, sends him running away. Castro ends up in Dario's office afterwards, and Dario's impressed. This is the first time he's seen Castro, or Cortez Castro, really be that person who he thinks he is. So he wants him and Joey Ryan in a match next week in what is termed a 5-0 street fight, since they're both cops. And it's also going to be for one of the Aztec medallions. So, interesting happenings there. I know this has been sort of in the background, but this is really tied into the bigger story for Lucha, so I'm kind of interested in what's going on here.
Yeah, I am too. I think it's going to be, something that's going to have some legs when it goes to, moving us forward, especially to Ultima Lucha. So, I'm interested. I just hope whoever wins that 5-0 match says, book him, Dano.
Now I hope they do too, Gary.
Yes, see?
And that leads us into our main event here, the Boyle Heights Biker Brawl, for one of the Aztec medallions, Son of Havoc taking on Son of Madness. So these guys get about 14 minutes or so, and they just come straight out the gate, brawling, fighting. They throw all sorts of crap at each other, big moves, lots of weapons. This is just a balls-to-the-wall, fast-paced, hardcore match that I think Lucha does extremely well. Maybe not one of the best they've ever done, but this is certainly a really, really great effort from both guys. And Son of Havoc ends up coming out with the win after he breaks a beer bottle over Son of Madness's face after he charges in at him with a hammer, and then hits a shooting star press on him to get the win. So whether this feud is done or not, I highly doubt, but Son of Havoc does have a medallion, is heading towards wherever that match will take place. I would assume at Ultima Lucha, but he's got a future ahead of him of contending for the Gift of the Gods Championship now.
Yeah, and that's great. I think the fans have been really enjoying him and really seeing his path go, in this direction. And the Son of Madness has just been that giant thorn in his side for a long while now. And I think it's cool that he finally gets a chance to kind of say, look, I'm still going to beat you no matter what, Son of Madness. And I know you're trying to put, the boots to me because of our, relationship with the biker club, but I'm going to come out victorious, and I appreciate all that. I think that he did a good job here. I think both of them did. I was just having so much fun watching this match. I don't think they let anyone down at all. So really good job on their part. Really happy with it, but I'm also happy with the fact that the storyline takes us somewhere, and with him getting the medallion, it's more than just him beating a rival.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Beating a rival, putting to bed whatever story he's got there. He got his cut back from Son of Madness, who stole that from him a while ago. So all is good in the hood for Son of Madness, and looking forward to next week. We got a lot of great stuff on our hands, hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. And trust me, Lucha is really getting better and better every week. So I'm excited about seeing what they got in store for us next week. All right, well, we are going to move on from here and take our time away from the temple and head down over to the GFW Impact Wrestling Zone, if you'll say it that way, and talk some of what's going on in GFW. We'll do that next.
I still don't have the theme for Impact. I really need to get on
that. We say that every episode, and we forget. I forget every episode. So one of these days, we'll type it in the phone and say, "Hey, remember this?"
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's just jump into it. We've got some interesting stuff.
Absolutely. So we open Eli Drake, Chris Adonis, Lashley, and Dan Lambert and the American Top Team are all showing up to the building. Jarrett and Lambert getting another argument, and I struggle to care. So
it doesn't. You're not alone.
Yeah. And that moves us into Eli Drake coming out to celebrate his big title win from last week. He's, of course, got Chris Adonis with him. They have zebra print furniture everywhere. And Eli says he's basically been waiting his entire 14-year career for an opportunity like this, and he finally seized it. And while he should be happy, he's really upset that it took 14 years to get here. So he's still hungry. He still wants to prove he's the best and all this other stuff. And this brings out Johnny Impact, who says that Drake can basically mark out for himself, but nobody wants to hear him talk anymore. Johnny Impact wants to be the champion. This brings out Eddie Edwards, who also stakes this claim, and says he outranks Eli, essentially, because he's been the champion before and should have a rematch. This brings out Jim Cornette, who says that the title scene is just so hot because everybody wants to be the champion. So he makes the main event for tonight Eli Drake and Chris Adonis to take on Eddie Edwards and Johnny Impact. And if Edwards or Impact get the pinfall, they get the title shot. Pretty basic, but ultimately I thought this was fine.
Yeah, and each guy getting in the ring and getting their spill in, it worked. Mm-hmm. I know you're not as big a fan of Eli Drake. I do like Eli Drake. I love him on the microphone. I think that's the biggest reason that I'm drawn to him. Otherwise, wrestling wise, average. That's fine. But hey, he's doing what he's best out here, and that's talking. And I kind of liked what he had to offer. I think it made sense. And then you bring down Johnny Impact, who, man, that's just a star. This guy, there's a reason he is what he is, and, has the accomplishments, is the Triple Crown winner down there in AAA, all that great stuff. So I appreciated his words. Eddie Edwards, I always feel is a stretch. I don't know why. I think he's okay, but I always kind of feel like he's a stretch. So I kind of felt like, hey, let's just throw another guy out there. Here you go. But, they love him. They love him. We've even seen a special behind-the-scenes segment with Jim Cornette, telling him, I hope you win, kid, which is kind of funny to me. But here it is. So Cornette comes out. Cornette's, the professional here at that. He talks and talks and talks and gets the stuff done. So I think overall, out of this whole segment, I think you get some good things. Heck, you even get some furniture from a strip club. So, good stuff. I mean, it worked, I just hope that they didn't get any stains on that stuff before they get it back to the club. So
it's all the budget could afford, unfortunately. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Allie meets with Taryn Terrell backstage and wants to know why she's so mean to Gail Kim, and Taryn says she feels bad, and has a message for Allie to take to Miss Gail, and Taryn beats her up. So, basically Taryn patting Allie on the head for being so silly and so dumb.
Oh, Taryn. Taryn, did she look like a Scottish man to you? Come on, leave her alone. And she's not Drew McIntyre.
Oh boy.
But anyway, no, sorry, old jokes, old jokes. No, I mean, I think this is interesting, only because it's going to set up something later. Mm-hmm. But I think it's funny because they still are playing, Allie off as that innocent young pup, like she knows no better. Mm-hmm. So just proof in the pudding. Of course, we'll get more into it.
We will. And this brings us to our first match of the evening as Falala Ba and Mario Bakara take on OVE. OVE basically squashes them in under 3 minutes. I don't know if there's a whole ton to talk about here, other than LAX watching OVE, and this is probably going to be your tag team title program going into the future once they decide to at least give OVE some more characters besides coming out here and beating people up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. That's the biggest thing. We need more to the character side. Mm-hmm. We've seen enough of the beating up part. It's okay. But yeah, we've got to get invested in these guys, and we're not going to until they get on that microphone.
Right. Jim Cornette starts talking about some of the relationships GFW has, which, of course, led to Moose being on Triple Mania recently. EC3 shows up, and he's all pissed off that he wasn't on that show, so Cornette says, fine, you can wrestle a AAA guy here, and you'll wrestle Phantasma. So that should be quite fun. And then that brings us to some X Division action as Petey Williams takes on Caleb Connolly, some fallout from that ladder match. And Petey Williams ends up winning this one with the Canadian Destroyer. This was fine. I guess Petey is being pushed to be a challenger down the road. But I don't know. I'm struggling to... I love Petey Williams, I really do. I'm struggling to connect with him in 2017, I guess.
Yeah, it's sometimes fun to see these guys that were once something special back in the day. But bringing them out and, trying to make them relevant in a new era doesn't always work. And, this is fine. It gets across the point. Yes, Petey Williams, and yes, he's still good. And, but I can't say that it's anything strong, that it's really going to keep people interested in what's going on here in Impact. And I think, it's a nice little pop, for the crowd to see him again. But I just hope they don't overuse that, because I don't know that we can depend on a guy like him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly where he is anymore in ring-wise. He looked fine here, but he is much older, and that usually doesn't transition well whenever you're being counted on to work a faster style such as this. So,
yeah, and not only that, it's been so long, I don't even know how is he on the microphone. Can you build anything around him? Do you want to build anything around him against a guy at his age?
Mm-hmm. That was never Petey's strong point, but I wouldn't say he was bad at it. So at least you got that going for you. Trevor Lee attacks him post-match. Sanjay Dutt makes a save. So this will continue. Before I dive some more into the women's stuff here, Dick Justice is told he's up next. He gets lost on his way to the ring, ends up finally coming out to face Congo Khan. He gets squashed in under a minute. I don't know if you want to talk about that at all. But
I always have time for Dick Justice. Come on, Paul. I mean, this guy does some of the best squats you've ever seen in your life. If anyone knows how to sweat to the oldies, it's Dick Justice. I don't have much to say. He's funny. He's cute. It's a nice Eugene kind of character. That's all you need.
Yeah. Congo also goes to attack him post-match, and Mahabali Shera makes the save. I just sort of groan.
Yeah, I don't groan. I go, what happened? Oh, yeah.
Taryn now meets with Sienna and Karen Jarrett backstage. Sienna doesn't want to leave the scene. I believe she was attacking. This was still with stuff with Taryn and Allie. Sienna doesn't want to leave. Karen is trying to break it all up and starts yelling at him for all the stuff they've been doing recently. So it'll be Sienna and Taryn Terrell against Gail Kim and Allie next week on Impact, and says there might even be a stipulation involved. Okay.
Yeah. You just let's throw two people together so they can face two people that are having a feud. Okay. Yeah, I'm not overly emotional about it. I don't want to just hate on it, but I don't think this is something that people are wanting to really see.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, well, you've got to have one knockouts match, and you got two different things going on. Just put them together.
Yeah. James Storm then takes on Loki next. Loki does end up winning here with the double stomp and some help from LAX, because that's basically how all of this goes with LAX nowadays. The match was good. I actually enjoyed this for the most part, and that's really tough for me to say, seeing as half this equation is James Storm, but this was really good.
Yeah, I was a little surprised you said that. I was waiting for you to come on here and, really, no-sell this completely. No, it actually was good. And, I think that they really were working hard to put on a good match. I think that they, for the most part, gave me more reason to care about Loki. And that's what I got out of this. I really did. And I really know James Storm being not only just a legend there in Impact, but being a guy that was, a part of the former regime, that he's not going to get most of the love. So that's what they're doing here. They're kind of giving him a little love by letting him be on TV, but they're using him that way Loki can look better. And it is what it is. Loki, hey, he's the guy right now for them, and yeah.
Allie is icing her head backstage from the attacks. Braxton Sutter is there. Garza Jr. shows up and asks Allie if she's okay, and Sutter goes full-on dick mode and yells at him. So I'm struggling to sort of connect with this, because they should be living in bliss a little bit since they've won their way earlier this year, and they've immediately reneged on that. So this is it's been a struggle at times for me with this one, just because Braxton doesn't really interest me all that much at times.
Well, yeah, he is honestly very boring.
Yeah.
It doesn't have much to offer. Not a big guy, not a lot of charisma. He's just, it's kind of funny. They lost a similar couple to WB, which, Mike Kanellis and Maria Kanellis. And, once again, the female equation's got more charisma, has more that people care about. And that's the same with this. So I'm really kind of curious where they're going to go with it. I mean, it does seem like that he has a big problem with a lot of people, or he has an attitude problem, one of the two. But Braxton Sutter is just not happy, which is weird. He just seems like always on edge. And I don't know why, because like you said, he should be in bliss. He did everything he needed to do, got the girl of his dreams, all this kind of stuff, and now he kind of forgot about it. Maybe he got complacent. I don't know. But Garza Jr., hey, I'm already saying he has more charisma. So I would be worried, He should be worried. And Allie, does her thing. And, I think it's not a bad storyline. I want to say that. I think it's actually an interesting storyline to have, the jealous boyfriend going after another guy. But I have my fears that it's not going to be good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am too, just because half this equation doesn't really deliver at times when you really need him to. And he was good during the wedding stuff. That's really, I think, about the only good thing I have to say about him.
Yeah, that's because he didn't have to talk a whole lot during the wedding stuff. So
Right. We get some footage of all the stuff with Dan Lambert and American Top Team that's been screwing around with Lashley's head, according to Mr. Jim Cornette, and he's sick of all the bullshit, and that's the entire segment there. So, we then cut to Joseph Park, Grado, and Laurel Van Ness planning out the wedding when they discover that Laurel is from Canada. And honest to God, this was a highlight of the show for me.
Yes, I loved it. I mean, you're sitting there and everything's peachy creamy, and you're like, okay, well, why are they showing this? I mean, everything is good, I guess. Or are they going to show him getting his papers and all that? And the next thing you know, she's Canadian.
Yeah.
Oh, golden. The best thing. I love Grado's reaction. Oh, it's. But you know what? My thing about that whole thing is I don't know Canadian laws, But if they have the same laws in place, I mean, I'd be okay being Canadian. I don't have a problem with that.
But then he'd have to go work in Canada. He couldn't work here.
True.
So,
I guess
so. Unless
true.
Global Force Wrestling is going to move to Canada just for Grado.
Which, may not be a bad idea. But no, yeah, that's true. I'm just saying, being a Canadian citizen is not so bad. But you're right, he couldn't work here. But it may be easier to get a visa.
Maybe. I don't know about all that.
Maybe not. I've heard some horror stories about guys in Canada trying to get to work here in the States. So maybe it's not so peachy creamy.
We then get to learn that Pagano from AAA is coming, who looks kind of like an interesting character. And we get to hear again that Taya Valkyrie is coming. And then we get to this part where Lashley does a sit-down with Dan Lambert. And Lashley wants to be a success in both MMA and wrestling. And Lambert wants him to focus on MMA because his age and all that is closing the window on his chances for success there. And he hypes up Triple Mania, which of course has already happened, but he says he's going to run over everybody there. And Lambert says he's been doing Jeff Jarrett a favor by running around with Lashley on this shows and advertising and all that stuff for him, but Jarrett's been disrespecting him and they have a problem now. And Lashley says he'll choose which way to go when the time is right. Gary, I same problem as last week. I don't care. I really don't care.
Yeah, we're in the same boat, right? I mean, there's nothing overly interesting about this. We're watching a wrestling product. We're not talking MMA. We really don't do that. Hey, our network has its own MMA podcast. Go check it out. MMA to the Max. Really good show, if you're an MMA fan. But that's the reason I don't think either of you really care about this, is because they're trying to mix two worlds. They're trying to make a point, and it's not entertaining. It's not exciting. I could care less about this groupie, whole set of groupies with Lashley. I just don't care, and you're not making me care. So they're not doing a good job, obviously. And you can have Jim Cornette involved. He can talk and talk and talk, and it's still not going to make it any prettier.
I absolutely agree. And that brings us to our main event. Eli Drake and Chris Adonis taking on Eddie Edwards and Johnny Impact. This was so long. This is almost half an hour, which is just incredible when you see that on paper. But there's a lot of good work to be had here, and I don't want to take away from that. But just this did not need to be that long, not at all. I don't know what else you give time to on this episode of GFW specifically, but I mean, cutting off 5 minutes would have just been super helpful, if you ask me. Eli Drake ends up getting the win after Impact and Adonis spill to the floor, causing the referee to look away. Drake hits a low blow in the air raid crash to pin Eddie Edwards. This brings out Lashley and all of American Top Team. He cuts a promo and runs down everybody in the ring. Jim Cornette shows up and says, if you go down there and touch anybody in that ring, you're going to be suspended. So Lashley calls everybody off, and next week he makes Matt Sydal for Eli Drake against Eli Drake. I think it's for the title too, because Sydal won that match at Destination X, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, you're probably right. I couldn't remember myself how that was working out, but yeah, I mean, this was fine. It was long, like you said, and it was good, but it wasn't overly good. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. I think that they did the right thing here, though, because you can have Eddie Edwards, still battle it out with Johnny Impact, and they can still do their little thing, maybe saying you cost me the match or whatever. But Eli Drake, getting the victory by nefarious means and all that, I'm okay with that. That's the stuff that he's made of. So there you go. I mean, I think that was a smart decision on their part. But, where we go here from Eddie Edwards and Johnny Impact, I think that's more intriguing at the moment.
Absolutely agree with you. I am looking forward to that match next week, though. I like Matt Sydal a lot, so hopefully good stuff happens there.
Yeah, I think so too. We'll have a lot of fun talking about that, I'm sure. One last thing, and I don't know if you omitted this or maybe I missed it, but I just got to ask you about this quickly. So we have that scene where Moose is being told about being part of Triple Mania. Did I miss that? Did you mention that?
I mentioned Jim Cornette talking about Moose at Triple Mania, and that's when EC3 showed up and was all pissed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I didn't comment on that. I'm sorry. I should have commented on that at that time. I'm just going to say once again, I'm a little pissed off. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of EC3 being put in these situations where he looks like a complete idiot. Like them going away making the joke, the road dog, like, oh, you didn't know? My God. I mean, I'm surprised Cornette even listens to Road Dogg, let alone whatever. I'm just tired of it. I don't know if he needs to change his name or something. That way he doesn't have Carter in it. That way the Jarretts will be friends with him. I don't know. I really don't know, Paul. I mean, I just expect bigger and better things for EC3, and they just don't have it, and I don't understand why.
This is really tough for me. One, I do love EC3, but it's not. He hasn't been treated very strongly since his world title runs kind of came to an end. And realistically, it might be because he does have all the trappings of the old guard that was there before GFW came back in to take over. So maybe they just don't have plans for him anymore, which is a real shame because the dude is obviously super talented, but I don't know. I don't know really what they want. I mean, they have the Impact Grand Championship on him. I don't know what they're trying to do with him anymore other than just, here you go, buddy.
Oh, yeah. I'm disappointed. I think he just needs to go and say, look, go away for 2 months or something like that and come back and say, look, guys, I did some family history. I was on Ancestry.com. I found out that I'm not a Carter. I'm a Jarrett. Oh, really? Oh, well, you're here. You're the number one contenders. There you go. For both titles. I'm just sick of it.
I'd watch that.
Yeah. I'd watch it, but if he was a Jarrett, I probably would quit being a fan. Anyway, moving on from all that. Yeah, I mean, that's our Impact, right? And, not a terrible Impact. I think they had some good moments, but, once again, some things lasted way too long, if you ask me. All right, well, now we're going to get on with the rest of our show and finish it out by doing a cool thing, and that's right, we are going to crown a Superstar of the Week, and of course, we're also doing the end of the month stuff, a Match of the Month and a Superstar of the Month, and we are going to do that next.
Superstar of the Week.
Go for it, Gary.
All right, guys. Well, let's start by talking about the guy that's going to get a point from us this week, and he didn't even have to really get in the ring to do it besides cutting a promo. He didn't have to wrestle for it. John Cena.
Yeah. I don't know how everybody felt about the segment that him and Roman Reigns had on Raw this week, but I found it pretty good, and Cena was definitely the stronger half of it, if you ask me, even though Roman Reigns probably did fine. He's getting burned all the time, and those burns got Cena 1 point this week. It wasn't. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it's probably my favorite part of Raw, and which is odd to say, but yeah. Well, Sean, 2 points are going to be given to Alexa Bliss. You, yeah, that's right, won the women's title over there on Raw.
Yeah, very quickly after Sasha had beaten her, she wins it back. So, props for that.
3 points are going to be given to War Machine, Paul.
What a great match they had on Ring of Honor TV this week. Jay White and Jonathan Gresham were totally game with them the entire way. War Machine just continues to look like this strong, badass team that they are. And I go watch that match, guys. If you haven't seen it yet, it's absolutely worth your time.
Oh, it is a blast. I mean, I really enjoyed it myself, too. Another one I really love watching is the guy that's getting 4 points, which is Roderick Strong. And I know, Sean, you didn't get a chance to watch NXT this week, but Paul, I really Thought this was a fun match.
Yeah, Roderick Strong and Bobby Roode had a terrific brawl, a great match with a whole lot of story being told throughout it of Roderick just trying to keep proving that he is on Bobby Roode's level, and he finally does. And obviously we know why, since Bobby Roode is moving on, but it's great for Roderick to have this moment. He looked really great in there, and it's one of the best matches all week that we've covered, so absolutely deserves the 4 points.
Yeah, and it really rivaled the guy that we're about to give 5 points to. We debated and debated and debated over this, but we kind of had to make a final decision. And our final decision is the 5 points, and the guy that's going to be Superstar of the Week, Paul, is going to be Son of Havoc.
Yeah, what a match on Lucha Underground this week those two had. Great brawl, lots of story going on there, lots of heated emotion. The crowd was super invested. It's just it's really hard to top the Temple when they're on point, and Son of Havoc just absolutely knocked it out of the ballpark, if you ask me.
Yeah, for sure. Same here, and once again, we had a tough time, but we had to give it to Son of Havoc. I just was overly joyed watching that. But yeah, so there you go. He is our Superstar of the Week, but now we are going to crown a Superstar of the Month. And that guy that we are giving it to, Naito, Sean.
Yeah, he won the G1 Climax 27, so, I mean, that's a huge honor right there. He also had one of the best matches with Kenny Omega. He had great matches with Ishii as well, so, you know, the man certainly proved that, look, we could have given it to Okada again, but I feel like winning the G1's a huge deal, and he had one hell of a match, you know, two awesome matches with Tanahashi and Omega to lead into it.
Yeah, that match with Omega at Sumo Hall is just it's an instant classic, is what it is. Great wrestling. The crowd is absolutely invested the entire way, and Naito winning the tournament was just what they wanted to see, and that's enough to get Wrestler of the Month from us.
Yeah, and also Match of the Month when it comes to that match, right? Kenny Omega and Naito just, you know, really taking everything and just making it wonderful. Really happy to see that, Paul. I mean, and that was you know, like you said, a great match. And, you know, Sean, I mean, there was other matches we could have talked about and really kind of put in here, but we just figured this has got to be the match because of the quality we got.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, look, you're picking hairs out of the Okada Omega 3 and Naito Omega, but I just really, really love Naito Omega a bit more. The crowd was into it more. Obviously being the final helps, but it's a tremendous moment because, you know, the crowd just wanted to see Naito win so bad.
For sure. And, you know, I love when my guy Naito makes this kind of headway and gets this stuff. So great month for him. Really excited. Well, there you go, guys. That is the rest of our show. We've had a lot of awesome stuff to talk about. I mean, a lot of fun tonight. Want you guys to know, of course, next week you can tune in for more great shows from Wrestling to the Max. Of course, we'll be doing the two parts, Tuesday morning and Friday morning. They'll be available for you on the download, along with our great reviews, Raw, SmackDown Live, 205 Live, NXT. All that great stuff is headed your way. And don't also forget, you got the Mae Young Classic coming from Wrestling Unwrapped to the Max. Paul, Harry, and Patrick are doing a great job at that. You guys need to tune in on the network, watch those shows, and then tune into those shows following, because you can get a lot more education than you ever knew that, you know, was out there. So really happy about that show. Also, man, you need to go check out some of the other great shows on W2Mnet.com, like Football to the Max. Yeah, I you know, kind of mentioned it when Sean was talking about it earlier, some football news. We did a really fun show tonight. We actually talked a lot about some of the biggest news topics. Of course, Ezekiel Elliott is one of those big news topics. Plus, we talked college football and gave some of our predictions for this weekend, what's going to happen to some of the bigger matchups, plus kind of honestly gave you what we think could happen at the very end of the college football season when it came to our top 4 playoff teams and who we think is going to win it all. Brawl. So there you go with that show, plus other great shows that we mentioned, MMA to the max, and just there's a video games to the max. There's all these great podcasts that you don't want to miss out on. So go to W2Mnet.com. Hey, and if you just want to find out through the podcasting, search out Wrestling to the Max when you just want our stuff. But if you want all of the great stuff I just mentioned, plus us, the W2M Network is the place you go rate, subscribe, and review. So those are some easy ways to get all the content that we have to offer. Just making sure you guys know that, remember that. You can also find us on YouTube and all these other great platforms. And once again, want to maybe also give some shout out and love to Formula1Mania.com for supporting us, along with Last Word on ProWrestling.com. Make sure you go check out both those sites. They are wonderful as well, and we appreciate them. So there you go. I gave you the entire gamut. A wonderful night tonight. Thank you for joining us once again. So for myself, for Sean, and for Paul, if you're not living life to the max,
not living life at all.
You know it.
Please.
Later.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.